Hi, I'm Doug Donnelly, and welcome to Cecil TV. The organizing instrument of Cecil County's government is the Charter of Cecil County, which was put in place by the voters of Cecil County in 2010. It defines the powers of the county council and the county executive and establishes important roles such as the director of finance, the director of administration, and the county attorney. It also sets forth how elections are conducted, and it is this subject that we are addressing in this segment. Cecil County elects its county council members with a system known as at-large voting, meaning that all voters get to choose candidates in all of the 5 districts in the county. Our guest tonight presents an alternative to this system. We welcome Michele Ravert to Cecil TV.
Thank you.
So first, can you tell us who you are and what got you interested in this subject?
I am Michele Ravert, and I ran for county council last year. And in learning about what the council does and how the elections operate and things of that nature, when I came upon this little nugget, it really kind of struck a chord with me, especially when I delved into it and learned how racist it really is in its basis and when it started. I really wanted to make some change. This year, I'm not running for anything, so I can focus on some issues that I would like to change in the county, and I'm hoping to do that.
All right. So, how do you believe the current at-large system fails to represent the interests of all communities in the county?
So if we start back what I said earlier about it being racist, it started in the Jim Crow era. So it has its roots in racism. And it was instituted to dilute the black vote such that the whites could maintain supremacy in all of the government. And it worked, along with all of the rest of the voter suppression tactics during the Jim Crow era. However, it has since kind of evolved into a political weapon for a plurality party to maintain their supremacy in any given government. And here in Cecil County, at-large voting ensures that our county council is 100% Republican all the time.
So, of our various districts, ranging from, Port Deposit to Cecilton and so forth, which communities do you feel are the most unrepresented?
So I would say in Cecil County specifically, our African American community, our black community, they are very concentrated and segregated in the county. And I think that District 2 really has an underrepresentation of that demographic there.
So, all right, so how then, describe the mechanism of how, how does in-district voting, improve the representation? I mean, when, just clarifying the terms, with in-district voting, you're only going to vote for the person who's representing your district.
Yep.
So then, I mean, how does that then improve representation?
So if you look at, say, our voter base is 45% Republican, something like 29% Democratic, and 25% unaffiliated, which means then that 45% of the electorate elects 100% of the seats, is essentially how that works in the at-large voting scenario. Because those 45% dilute all of the rest of them throughout the county. However, if it was by district, each of the districts would have their own piece of the pie and their own separation of parties, right? So I know District 2, for example, it still has more Republicans than Democrats, However, it has a lot of unaffiliated voters, which I believe would make the difference in that district and could swing to something other than Republican.
Right. Do you think that, say, it's probably hard to be precise, but say in 2024, do you think the outcome somehow would have been, at least in that district, in District 2, do you think the outcome would have been different?
With all things being equal, no. We had an incumbent running, or 2024 we didn't have anybody running in District 2, but in 2022, she was an incumbent. She probably would have, won her seat again. But the seat is going to be open next year. She no longer lives in District 2. Unfortunately, we can't get this passed in enough time to have voting by district at that time.
Right.
But I do think that it will be a contested election, which is something that we really haven't had much of in the past couple of years.
Right. And, people of a certain age will recall that though it was not, we didn't have in-district voting, we did at one time, say maybe 20 years ago or more, we did have a mixed, it was the county.
The Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners.
Yep.
Was typically a mixed group of Democrats and Republicans.
That is exactly right. And it was up until the institution of the Charter, which took effect before the election of 2012.
Right.
Since 2012, nothing but Republicans have been elected to county council or as the executive, either, the county executive.
Right. All right. So then turning to, let's say, down the road, if we were to have in-district voting, and how do you think that might alter the accountability of the elected council people?
So right now, our county council has to make the whole county happy in order to get votes from people in the county, which then they ignore those local issues because they can't focus on anything local to make their district happy because they have to make the whole county happy. So that's a problem. If voting by district, you can focus on those very community issues and make an impact to that district and bring those concerns to the county council, who then talk about it as a county-wide body and decide whether to move forward or not, can it be funded or not, or whatever the case may be. So there is still discussion within the county council for anything that impacts the budget of the county. It's just a matter of having those representatives really represent the people of that district. For example, in District 1, I know there are areas that don't have clean water. Yes, it is 2025 and there are areas that do not have clean water. It will never be brought up because it is such a small community that has this problem. It'll never be brought up in county council. Nobody cares. But if our district representative was held to the fire to do that and would lose votes because he did nothing, then things may be different.
I could imagine the arguments against this, saying that that council members should consider the county as a whole when they vote on something or approve something, and that from the voter perspective, a voter might think you're taking something away from them, but you're also giving them something.
That's correct.
Right.
The reality of it is, if by the numbers, the impact is not as big as people would actually imagine. It's
Right.
we're really talking about one district would be non-Republican, and very long shot possibility that a second might.
Right.
And that's very dependent on the unaffiliated voters, because we have a lot of those in the county, And it's wonderful, in my opinion, that the unaffiliated voters who have always been excluded from our primary elections will actually be the deciding votes to say
Right.
who wins those council seats.
Okay, so how would this ever come about?
So there are two different ways that it could happen. First is a council resolution to put the measure on the ballot for the voters in the next election cycle. The second method is to petition to have that ballot referendum on it for the next election. I went to county council this past Tuesday and advocated for them to pass a resolution to abolish at-large voting and institute voting by district. However, I was told that that will not happen. So now I am tasked with collecting 7,745 voter signatures to get that ballot measure. And I will try my best to get that done.
Yes.
Because it truthfully is, the county charter is the people of Cecil County. That is our Bible. That's our book. That's our rules of how we govern our county. And they should decide how we vote in our elections. I don't really think the people were as engaged as they should have been when this charter was enacted. And I don't think people fully understand the repercussions of some of the things that are in there.
Right. It could be that the charter contains at-large voting simply because we previously had at-large voting, but it was an opportunity, I suppose. So you have a task ahead to build support for this.
I do. And the first item on the agenda is to educate and inform people of exactly what's happening in the hopes that when it gets on the ballot in 2026, we will get enough support to change the county charter.
What percentage of voters is 7,000?
10.
10%. Very interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Michele Ravert, at this point you're a citizen.
I am. I am considering a run for Maryland delegate in District 36 next year. But right now my focus is here in the county because this is something that is near and dear to my heart and I really want to see it through to fruition.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
See you again.